tipping point?
Well, the big push right now, of course, is to get rid of the filibuster. And the filibuster has been a Democratic protectionary policy in the Senate for as long as I can remember. I can't remember when it wasn't existing. And the filibuster basically says that you need a 60-person vote. It's not a supermajority, but you definitely don't need a 50-50. You can't have a 50-person vote and pass a major policy. It's just not possible. Mm-hmm. You think that Kamala Harris would break a tie vote, but when you're passing massive legislation like the Voting Rights Act that they're trying to pass at the federal level, they're trying to nationalize our elections. And this is in response to what the Democrats perceive as an overreaction by some conservative or red states since the last 2020 election was so questionable. And that's a whole nother topic. But just to stay on the fact that a lot of people question the legitimacy of the election with multiple things happening, from a statistical basis, it bothered me a lot. Because when you have multiple states do things that are statistically such an anomaly that they all happen at the same time and the same time frame, you start to ask yourself, statistics doesn't buy that. There's just some things that are just the probability of them happening are so low that they're just not going to happen.
Right.
And so I'll leave that at that. But moving on from that, some conservative states responded with, banning ballot harvesting, for example, and drop boxes and requiring IDs. I think that's the big thing that really starts to really bother the Democrats, because they like to go into this sort of rehearsal of, that really disparately impacts the poor and minority communities. And I think we have to just dispel that. And that's not my area of expertise. And I certainly am not in that world. But I think that, what this National Voting Rights Act is purporting to do is basically force all states to have 2 weeks of advance voting. All states are forced to accept and provide for mail-in balloting. Drop boxes and ballot harvesting all becomes legal.
Got it.
And so you can see that this is the federalization of any kinds of protections to have a legitimate election. And I think that it bothers conservatives, because when you look at an administration that is selectively enforcing laws like immigration policy on the southern border, and we had 2 million people cross the border illegally in 2021, 2 million people. And you compare that to how many people voted in the last election. We're not talking small potatoes here. Right. So when you have a national law that basically institutionalizes the ability to not vote with voter IDs, California has just gone ahead and your state is crazy, Matt. It's gone ahead and said that you can print your ballots from home. So the paper, who's printing these ballots? What kind of a verification are we going to have that this is a U.S. citizen and that they have the right to vote? You have New York passing laws that now people can vote that are not legal citizens in local elections. Now, you might say, well, that's just, the local dog catcher and the school board, and their kids go to those schools and that affects that. And that's the argument that people use. And I'm not saying it's not a legitimate argument, but where does that end? You start going down that slippery slope of, well, now all these people are going to go vote, but they can't vote for the congressman or the senator or the governor or the president. So we have to give them the illegal voter ballot and not the legal. I mean,
that's weird. Well, you can just see where it's going. Yeah. I mean, you can see what they want.
They are trying to, it's like being the frogs in a pot. And the water is just slowly turning up, and we just keep staying comfortable until we're just dead, because we literally boiled to death. We just never felt the pain. And this is the MO of anybody in any organization that's trying to implement radical change. They don't come at you and say, put a yellow star on your arm. That's not how it starts. They come at you saying, well, we need to track these people, and then we need to do this with these people. Then we need to, and it's progressive. It's a progressive slow turn. And they're just getting people used to the ideal that people that are here that are not legal citizens have a right to vote.
Yeah, it does make you wonder how much of this, because for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction, right? So so the more that one side pushes for certain things, it's that doesn't happen in a vacuum. You're going to see pushback against it. It's going to be interesting to see if certain legislative things, what type of pushback that gets. I mean, for example, you might see states just go, nope, not doing that. Florida might be one of them. Just say like, hey, nullification. We have every right to not follow that federal rule. We choose our own votes, and we'll let you know who we vote for. So I could see things like that happening.
I mean, and the Constitution is very clear in the matter that the elections are state run for a reason. We don't have a federal, we're not supposed to have a federal overlord. It is supposed to be, federalism is supposed to be the states are co-equal to the federal government. And to their credit, we certainly had the South that was a bad actor for many years, and Jim Crow laws and voting problems. So we had the Voting Rights Act. We had Southern states that were under federal oversight for a long time, where they had to get their stuff approved just to make sure that they weren't doing anything that was, discriminatory, which was 100% correct. I mean, that's 100% correct. We cannot have U.S. citizens being discriminated against in any way. It's just, it's against the 14th Amendment, Equal Protection Clause. It is a problem legally. But what we also cannot have is the federal government coming out and saying that, well, you states, you're going to have no protections on the legality and the veracity of your elections, and you have to allow for all this nefarious actors. And that's